perfectly even ahead of time, I would like to open up our first panel, which is Innovation in MENA. And I'm thrilled to welcome all three of my fellow panelists here. We have Hanan, we have Jean-Luc, and we have Paolo. I would like to kick off the panel by asking you to introduce yourselves, and then I'll delve deeper into the questions. So if Hanan could start, please, that would be fantastic.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me in this amazing event. It's so refreshing to see that we are also transforming. Since we are talking about digital transformation, we are transforming in the way we are spreading knowledge, in the way we are gathering all this talent from all over to spread knowledge and to create a platform for knowledge sharing, which is our duty as experts. So I want to keep it short. You can always look me up online, because this time is for you, and not really to spend it on introducing ourselves. In a nutshell, a corporate business practitioner, management practitioner, turned into a consultant because I saw that there is a need for change. There is a need to create innovative mindsets in the Arab region. My mission is to contribute to the move of our Arab nation into a knowledge-based and innovation-based economy, and that's what I do through Sustained Leadership Consultancy, which is a boutique consulting firm specialized in creating innovation culture, culture change, and developing entrepreneurial mindsets. I'm based in Dubai. I came from New York, and I'm originally from Morocco.
Wow, that's a very varied background. Thank you very much, Hanan. I'll ask you to elaborate a little bit more later once we delve further into the panel. But to kick it off, also, Jean-Luc, if you could please introduce yourself, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, right. So I run a boutique consulting firm in Opolis with a focus on digital transformation and innovation. The two nowadays, they go a bit hand in hand. In the past, we were talking about digital transformation and innovation separately, but these nowadays they're pretty much mostly used in the same sentence. So I work with this, and then also with entrepreneurship. Lately, I've been involved a lot with developing and designing entrepreneurship programs. So not only delivering them as a trainer, but also redesigning programs, especially now also for areas like deep tech. So how do you make that transition as well from academic type of innovations into the real world and the corporate world? So I'm fortunate to work at this intersection between the startup world and the corporate world, working both with transformation and innovation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jean-Luc. And Paolo, if you could please introduce yourself, and then we'll kick off.
Yes, Elizabeth. Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me in this panel. It's great being here with you. I'm Italian. I have been in Dubai for the last 3 years and a half, leading the consulting team for BNSite, which is a boutique consulting company with the technology heart, as we call it. We provide technology services and consulting services in innovation and future foresight for government sector. So we really try to support them on a wide number of services to innovate towards being more future ready on skills development, on strategy, and on team composition and many other services. I came from France. I've been working in the last 10 years in consulting, starting first with family businesses and support them in what's the biggest dichotomy in family business between innovation and heritage, and so supporting family business to innovate. And then I moved to France and working for a big company like Schneider Electric, still in the innovation field. And so then I moved in Dubai, and now I'm supporting the government sector to be more innovative. And I am on the side, I'm also an adjunct professor for Grenoble École de Management in France and in Lyon in Switzerland.
Wow, amazing also. So I'm really excited to have my fellow panelists coming from very different backgrounds and doing something very exciting in innovation. So I would prefer all of us to look at our faces. This is way better, so that we're not just staring at the projected screen, and I would prefer to speak to all of you this way. And to start off, this is a question directed to all of you. I wanted to ask you a bit deeper in terms of your background and how you personally have stumbled upon the innovation route in the Middle East, and what your company exactly is doing in further detail to contribute to that innovation landscape in the Middle East. So whoever wants to start, I'm happy to entertain that. Ladies first, maybe. Thanks, Hanan.
Okay. Not that I want to go by the law of ladies first, but it just happened that I want to start.
Great.
It was really, I would call it, it was a shift that I was exposed to. I had the privilege to be called by the executive office of Sheikh Mohammed in 2007 when they were launching what is called today Mohammed bin Rashid Foundation for Knowledge. And as I was really continuing my career journey in the corporate ladder as a marketing and communication director, so I had nothing to do with what I'm doing today. When I was called to work at the foundation, I had the privilege to be heading the innovation and entrepreneurship programs across the Arab world. So what the foundation was aspiring to do, or still aspiring to do, is really to promote the knowledge capabilities of the Arab world. So the mandate was including the 22 Arab countries, part of the Arab League. And for us, it was creating that infrastructure and coming to outcomes that why, as an Arab nation, we're not really innovating compared to others. And it's a sad truth, but we cannot hide it. If we compare the number of patents, versus the GDP, like everybody does, it's really minimal. So the foundation took that responsibility of seeing how we can really find solutions for that. And me being exposed to some of the research and the studies that were done, especially one study that I was in charge of that was mandated by the foundation to PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and that was a study about the Arab Human Capital Challenge in 2009, and it's available, you can look it up. It was a survey and a one-to-one interview, whole deep study that covered more than 6,000 C-level executives in more than 18 countries and above 16 different industries. And the results showed that there is a huge gap between what the educational institutions are producing as capabilities and the competencies that are needed at the workplace. Hence, many Arab countries still prefer to employ expats, which is something that we don't want anymore. We want to really integrate the local talents in all Arab countries. And to me, getting exposed to that truth was like a slap to my face. And I thought, do we want to be just pointing fingers and really finding the problems, identifying problems, or do I want to be part of the solution? And that's when the shift happens. Because one of the main challenges that were found by that study is that we don't have innovation, lots of critical thinking, innovation, creativity. Those all were identified as skills or skill gaps. And that's when I said, this is my mission. I want to be part of that. And that's how I started really taking more studies and getting more, certified innovation, really making it my own purpose to contribute to that change, but really focusing on innovation as a mindset, because I always believe that we don't build businesses, we build people who build businesses. That's something that I believe in personally. It's really about creating, it's the people who innovated the companies, the people who create, the people that come up with ideas. So my whole focus is really focusing on how we can start by building new generations with a focus on our Arab world, bringing that context, not just importing tools and methodologies from the West and say, just because it succeeded there, it's gonna succeed here. So to me, it's very important because I'm part of the culture, I know the culture, to really bridge that gap between bringing what's good, what worked elsewhere, but really adopting it. Otherwise, it won't be embraced as a mindset. So that's about me.
Wow, Hanan, you're echoing my thoughts exactly once I've started with Pearson Professional, as I mentioned, because just bringing something, and copying and pasting it into the Middle Eastern world, because I've been here for 10 years and I do consider it my home for sure. So I agree with you. A lot of people just think that it's perfectly fine to just bring something from the West and not develop people who are locally here and who are thriving with talent and will to learn as well. And sure, they might not have been exposed originally to the same opportunities, but it doesn't mean that it should be continuing this way. So you have a very valid point, and I commend you on this mission. This is fantastic. Thank you for that. Awesome. So
Cool.
Jean-Luc, would you like to tell us about your journey?
Yeah, I can. And actually, I want to start by saying that I share some of Hanan's view, but I wouldn't put the West all in one bucket, because I think here in the region there's a lot of American and British influences, but what influenced me, and this is a transition here, is really I started my professional career in Sweden, and Sweden is probably one of the most innovative countries in the world, has most unicorns per capita. And the reasons for that is because the mindset is very different. Already the way they organize is very flat organization. So I fell in love with the country and basically with the way they work. I grew up in France, but France is very theoretical, very academic. The Swedes are very pragmatic. And I think this is one of the reasons why they're so successful at innovation. So I learned a lot about innovation in Sweden. Also, let's say my training when I was initially certified as an innovation coach, it wasn't from one of these big American schools. It was from Sweden, from a small company, but they had been, making major impact with large companies for, 20 years. So Scandinavia is really my role model when it comes to innovation. So I always wanted to work with that. And when I came to the region here, I wanted to see what I could do to impact the ecosystem, both in terms of the corporate innovation as well as the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So quickly I realized that on the corporate side, it's very difficult to do things here because the majority of the innovations happen in headquarters. And it's mostly then government and basically the startup ecosystem, which is interesting. And I put a lot of efforts working with a lot of, innovation entrepreneurship programs, did a lot of coaching. And one of the things here I wanted to change a little bit compared to what is done a lot is that I think here in the region, startups are glorified far too much. People are not put, enough in terms of the brutal truth of what it is to be an entrepreneur. I think a lot of people are put on, or get silver spoons still when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I think that's the part where I want to become more active and really be this kind of on the ground person that really works with people and do less of the, glorification that you often see in Dubai.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. For me, the same. Even the way Dubai advertises and UAE in general speaks about startups, you're right, it is a bit glorified. And I think a lot of people go into that thinking that it could be smooth sailing, but they get disappointed rather quickly once they find out that that's not the case. So I think it's important to...
Yeah. And one more thing I want to add, and this is also an area where I will try to be more active in the future, is that there is a gap here when it comes to the academic world and the commercialization of products. In Europe, for instance, there is a very well-structured European grant projects to fill that gap, and there's not so much of that here in the region. So these are definitely areas where I believe there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's interesting to see that trend that both you and Hanan seen that gap here. So I'm wondering if Paolo also seen that gap and stepped onto that innovation journey. Paolo, what was your path?
Yeah, I must say that I've also had the same feeling, especially when I first moved to Dubai, which was 3 years back. But I must say that from my perspective, working mostly with the government, I was coming from a very different experience, which was the European experience, the French experience that Jean-Luc was describing before, which is a slow experience. I can, to be polite. And so for me, it was also very interesting to see how innovation in the Middle East happens a lot top-down compared to most European countries in which innovation usually happens from bottom-up. And so I think that merged my view with that gap that Hanan and Jean-Luc were describing. I think one of the biggest challenges that us as consultants, but also the government and the whole community of entrepreneurs had to feel in the Middle East is really trying to have both the approach towards innovation that is bottom-up and top-down. Because I believe that the government, it's true, we do glorify the entrepreneurial world in the Middle East, and then we do glorify and we do have built a brand that is often better than what the product itself is. But it's also true that compared to many other countries, here we have an agility of making decisions, we have an agility of creating infrastructure that in other countries we don't have. And this has been, for me, the biggest takeaway in the last 3 years of seeing how well the government has been able to react. I mean, if we think to COVID-19, I don't think that many other countries can say that they have reacted in a way like the UAE and other GCC countries have done. And I think that from a cultural perspective, what's really impressive is the fact that they really have this innovative way of thinking that is, making a decision, trying it out, failing eventually quickly and cheaply as much as you can, and then, improving your decision. And this is very much the approach that I believe we have, especially from a government perspective in UAE. And so I believe that we can capitalize here in the region on this approach by adding the other component, which is trying to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the whole environment to be more innovative by having what I was saying before, both a top-down and a bottom-up approach.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's interesting how you, I think, have a more positive view on the innovation landscape in the Middle East. Hence, the next question, I'll start with you, Paolo. What do you think, how is the innovation landscape looking in the Middle East currently? And do you see a lot of progress happening in the past decade in terms of innovative solutions? Since you were a bit more positive towards that, I felt.
Yeah, I do believe that we have been able, and the countries have been able to innovate in the right direction. And, when we talk about innovation, we typically look at a number of variables. And definitely you have the strategic component, so really understanding the vision and understanding where we would like to head when it comes to innovation. And then you have other two components that are usually the competencies. Do we as a country have the right people that can support us in our innovation journey? Now, the fintech environment, the artificial intelligence environment, it's a hot topic in the whole world, but especially in the Middle East. And so the question is, do we have the people that have the right competencies today to support us to embrace this journey that is still an unknown journey for many products, for many ways in which we can apply these new technologies? And then we have a third component, that is the infrastructures. And here we talk about, technology development of the countries. They've just launched the cloud in the Middle East, which has been finally, I would say, a massive improvement because without the cloud, you cannot speak of AI, you cannot speak of digitalization. And so I think that bit by bit, we are building the bricks that will make the innovation wall in the end. I believe that the first component I was mentioning, the vision, the strategic part, is the one that is more developed because, if you look at Vision 2050, Vision 2071, the National Agenda 2021, these are all the alignment with the SDGs. These are all things that on paper are great efforts towards becoming more innovative. Then operationalizing this vision, operationalizing this strategy is what probably we have to improve as a country. And so this is the critical part I believe we can improve, and where really the country now has to work to become effective in the way we implement and operationalize this vision.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think the vision has always been super strong in the Middle East, but that operational part needs to catch up a little bit. What about your opinion, Hanan? You came in wanting to kind of bridge that gap, and how do you see the progress in the past 10 years in the Middle East? Do you see lots of innovative solutions? What do you think the state of innovation is currently?
Okay, my first challenge is to have a common definition of innovation. I don't think we have one definition. What is innovation? Is it about having the latest technologies integrated? What is it? Is it about having, smart solutions, even digital transformation? Does every company or every organization who integrates digital solutions is really digitally transformed? So I think innovation has turned to become really a buzzword for the past probably 5-6 years, that everybody, I remember, I think in 2013 or 14, how the UAE government every year has a theme. And the year where the theme was innovation, everybody just went crazy about wanting to tick that box. And I remember personally, firsthand experience, I was called as a consultant, as an innovation coach and consultant by, I don't want to name the companies, but really big companies that wanted to run an innovation workshop because they wanted to be innovative. And I thought, well, innovation is really a far-sighted approach. You can't just run a couple of workshops for your people to become innovative. Are you willing to do an assessment? Because we do run an assessment on a company to see if you have that readiness. It's a readiness assessment. Are you ready to be innovative as an organization? It's not about running a workshop. And they were resistant to that. So it's really about really understanding what does it mean to be innovative. It really takes, because at the end of the day, innovation is really willing to try something new, to try something different. And trying something different means that you have a chance 50% failing and 50% succeeding. Do we have the procedures to allow, and the processes to allow people to fail? Can we really handle the unknown? Because I think one big lesson that this pandemic crisis and COVID-19 crisis has taught us is probably, I think it accelerated the acceptance of becoming more innovative. Because to me, innovation, the foundation of it is to have ease with ambiguity, is to really be able to take decisions knowing that you have no control, or at least no full control on the outcome. And that's where innovation sparks, when you're really willing to take that risk. And even individuals or decision makers or business leaders who are resisting that, I think COVID-19 came to teach us that uncertainty is a fact of life. And that sense of urgency really pushes you to try new things. I mean, we've seen government just working with trial and error. Close, lockdown, open, allow people to wear masks, no masks. So that's what innovation happens, when you're willing to really just try, and without knowing what's going to happen. You don't have the full big picture. So I believe that now, with having lived these kind of crises, having seen how the digital transformation, or what we call 4.0, or the fourth industrial revolution, is imposing, how it's making many industries obsolete, many jobs obsolete. All of that is coming as an acceleration to everyone to embrace that ambiguity, that uncertainty, what we refer to as a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it's no longer a wishful, element. It's not something that we wish for. It's just a must right now. Because if you don't innovate, you're just going to be irrelevant. It's really today about being relevant to today's world. We can no longer talk about being an expert, whether as an individual who could have a PhD and I don't know how many years of experience, but are you relevant for today's world? There is no more expertise. It's just about remaining relevant. And that's the same thing to companies. How can you remain relevant in today's world? Only by being able to innovate. And being able to innovate means you need to create a conducive environment where you don't plan and forecast. We need to forget about something called forecast or planning. It's experimentation. We need to experiment, and we need to have that environment that enables that experimentation and that accepts failure to a certain extent.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I love how you've mentioned iterative process that even applies of innovation, that even applies to governments. I think people were laughing when that trend came into play. They thought it could be a fad, that everyone wants to do design thinking iterative process, but now governments are trying it and seeing how it works and adjusting. So it's, I agree with you. Yeah, Jean-Luc, you wanted to add something?
Definitely. So yeah, I agree. I agree on the need to to experiment, to try it, but to be very concrete on some of these things. What does it mean? What does it mean taking a chance? What does it mean taking risks? Again, if we start with government, government has a wonderful vision, a very and the leadership is really showing a very clear path. But when you look at the execution, the solutions are all sourced from large companies, all sourced from the big integrators. If you compare to the work that is being done in Dubai with the work that is being done in Estonia, it's very different. Estonia has been primarily, and Estonia, just for people that don't know this, it's a number one most advanced country when it comes to e-government in the world. They have managed this by themselves pretty much. They have trusted small local companies to build their blockchain infrastructure. And because of that, they understand cybersecurity. I think here in Dubai, we're still, trying to figure out what all of this will mean. But I think, when we talk about, capabilities, when we talk about competencies, if you want these competencies to be sticky, if you want to give a chance also to the local population to see the value in developing these competencies, then you need also to start trusting these smaller businesses. And the same thing is true for academia. Again, I run a deep tech program a couple of weeks ago. Majority of the researchers that are here on campuses, they will start looking for grants abroad because there's a gap here. So even if I don't think the problem is really it's not the people, it's not the ability to develop the competencies. It's a problem that these competencies will move out of the country very quickly because they're still missing building blocks in the ecosystem. So I agree with everything that was said before, but I think there's more trust that needs to be put into the local ecosystem to solve the solutions of the government and of larger companies, not only rely on these, well-established large players.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Jean-Luc. Sorry, Paolo, go on.
And yeah, if I can add just one small thing to build on what both Jean-Luc and Hanan have said, I think a big question here arises also on the education industry, and the question is: are we delivering the right competencies to the new generation of leaders? Because to embrace that acceptance and that tolerance of failure, there are no skills that teach you to learn that. The skill is for something. The skills prepare you for something that is known, for something that is certain. The important element instead, I believe, should be we should capitalize on is building attributes of people, people that are able to react to the uncertainty, are flexible and adaptable to an uncertain situation, uncertain world, and that's what I believe is more important. So how do we teach people to learn how to learn? How do we teach people? And we were discussing about this the other day, right? It's really important to understand what are the skills and what are the attributes that people must have in the future.
Absolutely, and both of you have kind of touched on, and even Hanan as well, on that question that I had next in terms of the gaps to fill. But just to add to what Paolo was saying, that is something that you completely, hit a nail on the head with this, and bring that point home about education, because for me, that's something so crucial. And also like Hanan said, when someone is being asked just to come and deliver an innovation workshop, chances are they don't know what they are doing, because that's not going to help, because it's about the mindset. It's about providing people with tools. It's about fundamental change to the whole way we operate, not just giving one workshop and leaving and hoping that people will excel afterwards. So yeah, no, I absolutely agree that education industry needs to pick up and give people the right tools to succeed, because without that, I mean, who is to drive? Also, like Jean-Luc is saying, we need to rely on people to drive that, not just a blueprint solution from a consultancy company to just dictate how innovation would work. So yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
2 points I wanted to make about education. One is an example. So one of the case studies I usually present when I talk about digital transformation is Renault, how Renault has moved to Industry 4.0. And one of the very interesting things is that, as a large corporate, they realized that academia was not producing the type of outcomes that they were looking for. That they have actually worked with a few universities to create specialized MBAs on, one was on focusing on electrical vehicles, I think, and the other one was on mobility. So, autonomous driving. And these are also things that, academia needs to work closer with the needs of the private sector. The other thing also, which is true for universities and academic research, and again, this is something I discovered recently in the deep tech program I was part of. Researchers present projects and they don't have a clue about what the private sector is doing. And some of the research that was presented to me, I said, are you sure that Intel has not already developed what you're actually researching? And that's the problem, is that academia is moving too slowly. In the private sector, they have their own research, and in some areas, it's moving faster than academia. And that's another problem. So that collaboration really needs to happen.
Absolutely. As a person whose background is in academia, I 100% agree with you, because I transitioned myself from academia to private sector for that exact reason, because I wanted to actually get things done, not just hope for the things to get done. You're absolutely right. And we still do our own research in private sector. But I think the main takeaway from all of these... Sorry?
That reminded me to share. That's relevant to that. I totally agree. And that reminded me of what we were trying to do at the foundation after we identified that gap. Okay, so here we are talking to the private sector who are complaining about the lack of skills from the local talent. Okay, so what are you doing about it? Just sitting there and complaining, going hiring others and saying that the local talents, I'm talking about the whole Arab world, are not really qualified. So we planned to have academia, the public sector, and also the private sector sit down and say, okay, how can you contribute? You as private sector, are you opening your doors to interns? Are you sending your people to really teach in schools these practical skills? And one project that we worked on, probably a lot of you don't know about, and it just prompts me to talk about it here, was with Philips. It was amazing. To me, it's really, I see it because I was in charge of that program, and I really see it as something to really be proud of. What we did is we had a collaboration with Philips, at least, and we had a call for concepts from engineering schools, engineering universities in a few Arab countries, and the students who had ideas, real ideas about products, new products, that would fit within the categories of Philips, which we know are lighting, lifestyle, and health or medical equipment, weren't gonna get what everybody does with the entrepreneurship or business plan competition. It was not about giving them some kind of money or raising money for them, but the winners got to go to the R&D for an internship in the R&D of the Research and Development Labs of Philips in Holland for 6 months. And that's exactly what personally and with the team we were striving to achieve, and I continue to strive to achieve, take a student, bring a prototype. That's how I measure innovation. And that's why when you asked, how is innovation happening in the Middle East? It depends how we define it. How do we measure it? Is it by the number of businesses that are just copying and changing the name and saying that we have a new business? I don't know, but to me, that's not really innovation. It's great. It's great to have new ideas and new startups. And I'm very active in the ecosystem for the past 12 years, and I do work with major incubators here. But I would love to see something new. We don't just go and copy and tweak a little bit and give it an Arabic name and say we have created. So collaborations like these between the private sector, like we had with Philips, is, I feel, to answer your question, how can we improve innovation? So it's not about training, calling consultants to run a workshop or creating an entrepreneurship competition. That helps, but let's have really some real work, real innovation, measure that success with the number of patents that will be registered every year, for example. So I just wanted to add that, thank you, Jean-Luc, for prompting me to share this very, very good example. And I hope that a lot of academic institutions and private sector can join hands to really work on that innovation ecosystem.
Wonderful. And that brings me to my closing remark in terms of making sure that innovation works as an ecosystem, not just sporadic things here and there, as random workshops, as random projects that do not result into a fundamental innovation. It's about the change of mindset and having the whole ecosystem working towards that innovation. Thank you very much, the panelists. I think we have quite a few questions, and I will read this one in the chat. We got one from Akram, who says, if possible, give us some innovation practical examples from your experience. Any company, any school, any government or business or person as a model for us to see and study. Does any of the panelists have any of the examples to answer Akram's question?
I maybe can start off with this with something very recent that I was engaged with, which is the new program of Shaloub Group. I don't know if I think some of you have seen this already, and they have created a funnel of within the organization. For those of you that don't know, Shaloub Group is one of the biggest retailers in the Middle East for fashion products and luxury brands, and they have now created. They've been very, very much an innovative company. They've created the greenhouse, I think 3 years back, that is an incubator for entrepreneurship, where internal employees could actually develop their own startup within the organization. And 6 months ago, they've launched this program that would teach students the art and crafts of the industry. So they are still developing a number of programs that would then create and shape the skills that these future employees will need to work within Shaloub. And I believe that this is one of the trends that we are experiencing in the world when it comes to education. We are now challenging the relevance of having a degree into a prestigious university. Is it worth it to spend 100K or 150K to get a Harvard University degree or one of the Ivy League universities? Do we leverage only the network through that degree or not? And so, just to be concise, I think that Shaloub Group is one of the example to say how a private company has been able to innovate and has been able to do what the academia was not able to do. So also this is something we need to take into consideration. If the academic environment is not able to innovate, someone else will do it. And Shaloub Group has been the example of this.
Yeah, I can
Thank you so much.
I can give an example. In terms of universities, I think probably New York University in Abu Dhabi is one of the best examples to follow. For one reason, and that is in particular the way they think about building up capabilities. At NYU, there's 6 different programs for entrepreneurs, and they recognize that one size doesn't fit all. So basically, there's a program which is short for first-time founders. There's a program specific for industries like construction, There's programs for Emirati founders, and then there was now a couple of programs for deep tech, and that is really helping to build up the capabilities much faster. Then there's other universities as well, like if you look at Khalifa University with a Khalifa Innovation Center, they are taking the commercialization of research a bit more seriously. So I think that's the places where I see things are moving a bit faster, and that could be good examples to follow.
Great, awesome, thank you. So I'm just seeing comment from Nadia. She says, I think one of the things that ecosystem would benefit from as well is to have a more organized mid-career internship program. There's a great study by Mercer showing the gap from mid-career professionals. Yeah, absolutely, Nadia, I 100% agree. Thank you for the comment. Akram and Humam complimented the conference, which is great. Thank you very much for the feedback.